So if you'll notice, and on your agenda, there's something we're doing a little different today. For those of you who have been here before, we actually have a theme. So the theme today is systems and standardization. So how is that different? Well, we usually have different things. We have a run, a grow, and a live. But today is really all about standardization. So we're approaching standardization in three ways. I'm going to talk about the why behind standardization. Then we're going to have Stephen Hager and we're going to have Tom Ruich, who are going to drill back down into standardization and show you how standardization applies not only to systems but also to people. So that's the theme for today, and so that's the track we're running on. So sometimes do you feel like you could be playing a game of Survivor in your business, right? Yeah, for those of you who are not familiar with this, you have to outlast what's going on. And sometimes I feel like that's kind of where we're at. We're just like outlasting. We're just trying to hang in there. So when Ann and I first came to St. Louis, I worked for a company called Allen Foods. For those of you who remember the big red ball on the back of the truck. So one of the things that intrigued me about coming to work for Allen was that Stanley Allen, the owner, said, sales have been flat for 10 years. Now you got to be kind of crazy to think that that's an opportunity. But I kind of like the idea of that situation. So over the years, over 20 years, we grew it from 100 million to 280 million. But one of the things that I noticed is over 10 years, they were just surviving. They were just hanging on. And the point I want to make to you is I don't think that that's sustainable. We can't just hang on. So I don't know, for those of you who know the area down here, we have a McDonald's that was down at Woods Mill and Clayton Road, familiar? So courtesy of Karen Libby, our E4E photographer, she's been kind of keeping an eye on what's been going on down there. You're probably going, so what's this got to do with standardization? But you're going to have to hold on for a moment. So I got first introduced to standardization several years ago. I was on a project with my company, and we reduced the number of SKUs from 15,000 to 6,500, and we reduced the cost by $2 million annually. We had 7 operating divisions. Every operating division had their own specifications. We hired a consultant. The consultant said, you're spending way too much money. Consolidate your specifications, and voila, $2 million reduction in cost. So needless to say, I'm kind of a fan of standardization. So the other thing is, Glenda mentioned earlier, I was originally a part of the food service industry. So when I started the industry, this tells you how long I was in it, all the food came on a truck like this, okay? And we got 15 deliveries a week when I started. So when I left the industry, it came on a truck like this, okay? And everything was on that truck but seafood. And that's only because fresh fish doesn't do well with other stuff, right? But I mean, canned goods, frozen, produce, meat, it all came on one truck. So when I see these kinds of trends, now what happened to the 15 companies that were involved in this? What do you think happened to those 15 companies that didn't have this truck? Where do you think? They're gone, evaporated, right? So this happened all over the United States. It's not unique to me. All over the United States, all of these little companies got eaten up because now Cisco, U.S. Food Service, PFG, these are the companies who come, and all these other little companies, they're gonzo. So needless to say, I'm kind of a fan of standardization when it comes to how we run our business. Back to McDonald's now. So what intrigued me about this was that McDonald's is a highly standardized company, right? You can imagine that when you go to a McDonald's, they have it figured out. They have it figured out. What you might not realize is that in 90 days, and Karen did a great job. This all happened in 90 days. In 90 days, they tore down a restaurant and built a new one. 90 days. Now, do you think standardization had anything to do with that? I just happened to work with a client who's in this end of the business. That stuff's all staged ahead of time. The equipment was here in St. Louis. The product was here in St. Louis. The people were, they knew what they were going to do. The people were hired. All the contractors were in place. In the old days, all that stuff got bid, right? And it's a very lengthy process. They don't do any of that. They've got people who all over the United States they're contracted with to put these restaurants up. You're either in that or you're not, right? I mean, you're either part of that game or you're not. One of my clients today is putting in dialysis clinics. They do cabinets all over the United States, and they are a contractor under these terms. They're doing cabinets for somebody in California, Texas, Florida, East Coast, but it's all standardized. So I'm a big fan of standardization. Yet, what we're doing is we're playing whack-a-mole. Right? You guys familiar with the game? Right? Sure. Pops up, whack it down. Pops up, whack it down. Pops up, whack it down. So how's it coming? Is that fun for you? I hate it. I hate it. And it's really unproductive because there's a lot better way. And these people who lost all this business that I talked about earlier, they played whack-a-mole until it was too late. So what are we doing? We're firefighting. What's going on with us? Now we have a scarcity problem. Right? Because now we're in a situation because our everyday mantra is, oh, this is hard, I can't do this, this is unbelievable, and yet we become what we think about. So if we think that this is going to be hard, guess what? Pretty hard. So we are our own worst enemies. My belief is that self-fulfilling prophecy that we create causes us to be our own worst enemies. So this is us. This is the way we look. This is what we're doing. We're on this wheel, and there's very low return for what's going on. So in a book that we're going to talk about a little bit later on, 90% of the small businesses struggle. I'll let you read that information yourselves. But this is from a recent book that is pretty clear. This is us, by the way. We don't need to look too much further. So what obstacles can we remove? Well, you remember we all talk about working in and on and all of that? Well, what we're really doing is we're trying to get around to it. So one of these days, I'm going to get on top of my business, right? One of these days, I'm going to start working on my business. We've been doing that for 25 years. This book, 25 years ago, said, let's work on our business, not in it. What happened? Why are we still in this situation 25 years later? Because there are some really big changes that have occurred. And this is for E-Free partners, know this about me because they're sick of hearing about it. One of the greatest books of all time was written by John Naisbitt about megatrends and these waves of change that occur that are so large that we can't see them. And so one of his things is there's a restructuring of America from an industrial to an information society, which will easily be as profound as the shift from agricultural society to industrial society. That's a pretty big wave. But that wave is affecting everybody in this room. We don't know how, but it is. So this is us, right? This is how the wave is affecting us. Naisbitt said we are going to be drowning in information but starved for knowledge. For those of you who are here today, or for those of us that have come back here repeatedly, you get this, right? Because you're tired of all of this information out there. And I think one of the things that E-Free strives for is to provide knowledge. And so that's where we're coming from. Another thing is that most people don't really realize, but that we are a service economy with a product model. And if you want to talk more about this, we can talk privately about it. This came from a book that I'm a big fan of on the service industry. But this causes a lot of problems where we're selling products when what people really want is services. B&I is a great example. B&I is probably one of the most highly criticized organizations from people like us because we went there. How did it work for you when you went there? What was your opinion of it, right? So what are they doing? They're selling products, right? And it works really well if you're business to consumer. But if you're business to business, it's crappy, right? They're making that mistake. Now, they'll survive because they're highly successful. But, Uber is kind of an example to me of a change that is just remarkable. So if you're a cabbie today, or you used to be a cabbie, How's that life looking to you, right? So this is just another example of how things are really moving fast, faster than any time I can ever remember. So we all have a blind spot. Underneath the surface is this. Only 6% of us in this room think in a systematic way. 6% of us. So that's not hopeless, but we sure better accept the fact that we're probably not one of those 6%. So solutions, start with an abundance mindset. It has to begin here. You have to believe that this is going to change and you're going to be part of that change. So you've got to get away from that scarcity mindset. From firefighting to being fireproof, we need a paradigm shift from urgent to important. From urgent to important. Almost all of my clients are stuck in urgent. All right? There's not enough time. You got to focus on what's important. Let the urgent things take care of themselves. So learning to plan out the frustration and the waste, sorting out the urgent from the important things. Tony La Russa said, let's learn one thing every day. So today, what you're going to learn is how to save your stress, time, energy, and money through systems. This is from the book, Work the System. Carpenter says to go one layer deeper, get beyond the obvious. We are working with what's obvious. We don't take the time to get below the surface. Systems are a set of things working together. Standardization causes something to conform to a level of quality. I purposely put this in here. I hear these words used all the time, but nobody really understands what they mean. Here's an example of systems. One of my favorites, plan, organize, prioritize, and complete. What I tell clients, if you're not going to finish it, don't start it. How many times have you started stuff and it's still on your desk? And so I love the book, Work the System. A client told me, this is a game changer. We're going to do a program in January around Work the System. You'll hear more about that later. So standardization, systems, processes, and people. Call to action for you guys. Let's start with a business model. System to move from managing the significant many to the vital few. You cannot manage the significant many. Yet we're trying to do that every day. You have to think about what the vital few are. So as you, and I believe this to be true of all of us in this room, as we move towards company building, it's a different paradigm. Most of us struggle with that. It's like, well, I started my company, now how do I build it? So there are stages of standardization. I went through this a minute ago, but you've got to figure out, where am I on this list? Where am I on this list? If you're here, okay, you're here. So now I'm going to get here. If I'm going to here, I'm going to go here. But you're somewhere on that list. So today, Stephen's going to talk about the human aspect of systems. Tom is going to talk about the operational aspect of that. The sweet spot is, how do we balance them though? Okay? It's a constant juggling battle between the human systems and the other systems. So how do people systems work? Well, we improve results by identifying, banishing, and replacing every old behavior, habit, and routine. Those habits, behaviors, and routines are driving the results. I believe that we have to authentically meet people where they are, not where we are. That idea of this one size fits all, here's where I am, you come to me, no, we have to figure out where our clients are and meet them there. This is one of the most important slides that we have going. It's a little complicated. 3 strategies: sales, business, marketing. You have to have all 3. You have to have a strategy for all 3 of those things. What are the big and small tactics that you're going to do from those 3 things? What action plans, and what are we going to do to manage and measure? If you'll just do this, it's a great start. And by the way, don't do it by yourself. Figure who you need help with, or who can give you help. So one of the things that we don't do well, we really don't get around to measuring, but What you don't measure, we don't get done. So if you're trying to get stuff done and you're not measuring it, don't be surprised that you're not getting it done. What questions do you have from today? Yes, David.
Could you differentiate between marketing strategy and sales strategy?
I'll tell you my version of that. The marketing strategy fills the funnel. The sales strategy does something with the funnel. And I'm of the opinion that you can't do both, by the way. This group is my marketing strategy. This is our marketing strategy for our company. Do it by default. Do you systematically use habits and routines as a way of changing your behavior? Yes or no? If you don't, that's where you belong. It's a process of elimination, right? And you know, frankly, I am not good at this. I have to really work at it. It's hard. You know, the question was, where do I start? I see a trend coming. Where do I start? And I said, start with your customers. So we're going to have to, I'm sorry, we have to close. So, because I'm a sales guy and I close. I mean, why would you not close, right? Yeah, yeah. So you can have this. You know, this is not, you may be a little like freaked out or whatever today. You can have this, but you got to start someplace. Just make right choices, all right? It's just about if you're not there, you're making some bad choices. So, to me, this is my world. Risk, reward, risk, reward, risk, reward. So what I tell people is this: don't teeter-totter with the fat kid. Right? I can tell by the way you're reacting, you know what I'm talking about, right? Your feet just dangle there, right? There's no teeter-totter. The fat kid's got the teeter-totter. So that's what we do sometimes. So I would just say to you, look, what are the rewards or benefits of standardization? Answer those questions. What are the risks or losses in standardization? Answer those questions, and I think you'll find out what you want to do. So thanks. You were a great audience. I appreciate it.